See, I told you we'd come back. All right. So I went ahead and got everything ready to show you how I put on the oil pump and the parts that I need to put on the oil pump. And there's some tricks to that, so I'm going to show that to you. But first off, remember that little Chad gasket right there? That's the hanging Chad, you know, and you guys remember that whole ordeal. I'm going to go ahead and trim away the hanging Chad. All right. So that was it. That's all it took. This one looked pretty good. A little bit there, but not bad. Okay. On the oil pump. Come closer. So here's the deal on the oil pump. So I have a brand new oil pump, and I always use a brand new. They're not that expensive. At this time in 2021, $100, $125. All right. And then the other thing I do is I put the bolts where they go, because guess what? They're all different sizes. All right. So if you just threw them in a bucket and you're not real sure about where they go, one trick is to put the bolts on there and then look underneath and see if all the bolts stick out about 1/4 of an inch. So, you know, I'll switch these two. So if you got something that looks like that, then you know that ain't right, okay? All right, so anyhow, so I just look to make sure that, you know, they're all sticking down at least 1/4 of an inch or so, and that tells me that I got all the right bolts in the right place. Now, another thing on this oil pump, Mazda does 2 types of oil pumps. One of them uses a gasket, okay? And one of them uses an O-ring. So how do you tell which one that you need? Well, I won't do a separate video on it. I'm just going to add it to it right now, but only because you subscribed, okay? Otherwise, I'd have to do a whole nother video. Here it is. So if you look on the back of this oil pump, you can see right here, okay, there's a circle with a ring. That's for the O-ring. So the O-ring is going to just sit right inside that little hole. Okay, we put it inside there, and it's a tight fit, like that. Okay, and that's it. No gasket. Okay, if I didn't have that little slot, I got to use the gasket. Okay, but I have the slot. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some grease on where the seal is going to ride. So if you look at this step, this second step right here, this is where the seal is going to ride for the front crank seal. So I want to make sure it doesn't have a groove in there. They do make a quickie sleeve. If your seal got really hard and it cut a groove in it, you could put a quickie sleeve over it, and it's just a really thin metal sleeve that you tap on and it would go right over, and that way it would give you a new surface. But this one's in really good shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some grease on here, okay, like that. All right. If you notice on the crankshaft here, it's got a slot cut in it, and there's one on the other side. This is going to act as the drive gear, and then the oil pump has a mating surface to that. That's the driven gear. So when you put the oil pump on, you got to make sure that you line that up. So I'm going to make it to where it's just straight up and down like that, okay? Now, this hole and this hole play key parts in this also because they have a pin, all right? There's an alignment dowel that goes here and an alignment dowel that goes here. And where are those alignment dowels? They're in the oil pump, okay? So I really don't have to worry about them. One being, if I pulled the old oil pump off and it still had a dowel there, and my new oil pump already came with the dowels, I'd need to pull that one out with a pair of pliers, okay? But there's no dowel here, no dowel here, and my new oil pump is going to have the dowels. So I think that I'm ready to go ahead and put the oil pump on. So let's do that now. And like I said, man, there's just nothing hard about these cars. They're really easy to work on. Okay, and if I wanted to, I could put a little grease on the seal. If I look back in here, I can see there's one of the flats. So I'm going to turn this gear, because we made this straight. It's just going to help me put an oil pump on a little bit easier. All right. Okay, so I got my O-ring is in place. I want to make sure, yep, it's still there. And I'm going to be really careful when I put that around the seal. When I get to the seal part, I want that to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take these bolts off, but I'm going to set them on the floor in order that they go. That's going to help me out. Okay, so here's the dowel, O-rings in place. I want my seal, and I'm just going to kind of walk it around so that I don't ruin the seal, okay? And there it is. It's in place. All right, I'm going to go ahead and put my bolts back on. So let's see. That one goes a little over here. Yeah, I said I was going to put them in order, and then I didn't do it right. This one goes over here. There we go. This one goes here. Okay. That one goes there. And then this one, and it's got one really short one right here. A little short guy. Now, okay, this one doesn't have a bolt going through because this is where the alternator goes. All right. So when the alternator is bolted on, it will have that bolt. So let's go ahead and tighten these up. And, you know, once you've dealt with these things for a long time, I know there's a torque specification on them. It's probably 15, 18 pounds or so, because this is like a 6mm bolt. And so you just kind of get to know how tight they're going to want that size bolt. But if I was to look it up, I'd guess it'd probably be somewhere between 16 and 20 pounds. Oh, that one's a 14. Okay. I'm going to bring them down. Okay, and that one's a 14. Let me get my 14. 14 also 9/16 is the same. So I'm looking, I think that one's 5/8. That is. Well, I'm going to have to go with a wrench. I don't have a 14 on me here. Okay. Oh, it's not. Try this. Okay. 13 mil. All right. Okay, that looks good. Oil pump's on. Now let me show you the next thing that I do. And what I do is I take some engine oil and I drop it down into this hole. I know this thing's just about empty, so this is going to work out better than a full one. And what that does is it lubricates the gears in there. And I don't know, I would hope that it helps prime it, even if it doesn't. Okay, so even if it doesn't prime it, I kind of hope that it does. All right, so you can see it's full oil right there. All right, so the next step is going to be the oil pan. All right, so let me get cleaned up, and I'll get everything ready, and we'll come back with the oil pan.